we're looking at the top 10 things that would happen if there was no minimum wage.
You could afford a better looking sweater?
Number 10. Lower unemployment. Here's a quick question. What connects the European Union countries of Sweden, Italy, Denmark, Finland, Cyprus, Austria, and prior to January 2015, Germany? The answer is that none of them have minimum wage laws. Yep, even Sweden. Now what else connects them? On average, they have lower levels of unemployment than the rest of the EU.
Wow, someone who actually gets it! I mean, it's only been known for well over 100 years and is the basis of labor economics and the consensus among labor economists and supported by the overwhelming bulk of the economic studies, so yeah, nicely done. You're actually above most of the morons out there.
If you scrap the minimum wage, then employers are much more willing to take a punt on someone with no experience or lack of skills or no formal education, as it only costs them as much as they're willing to pay. This can take an axe to unemployment figures, getting the economically unproductive into the workforce.
Well, low productive, not unproductive. If you're completely unproductive, no one's gonna pay you a red cent, but everyone's productive in some way.
Number 9. Rise of the unions. The no minimum wage countries cited above are all, by and large, economic success stories with a decent standard of living. But there's another side to them too, one that might be an anathema to those who dislike socialism. They're also home to extremely robust, powerful workplace unions.
Look, unions are not socialist in nature. Unions are fundamentally free market. As long as there's no force involved, then unions represent a voluntary association of people who have agreed to have someone speak on their behalf and negotiate with their employers on their behalf. It's completely free market. The socialist part, the part that we object to, is when government takes this over. When government says, workers, you must join a union. And even worse, you must join this one particular union. It's mercantilism, it's cartelization, and in many cases, it even creates a monopoly. You know, the things socialists are supposed to be against. So yeah, we free market people have no problem with unions as long as they're formed voluntarily.
Non-minimum wage developed countries allow their citizens a good standard of living by letting them use collective bargaining to secure a wage. Nearly every worker in Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and Italy, plus minimum wageless non-EU states, Norway and Iceland, is unionized.
But they're not the only ones that are unionized. All of those other states, the ones you mentioned with the minimum wage, most of them are unionized as well because most of Europe is unionized. So you can't use unions as a reason for these states doing better. Also, when you look at the United States, we don't see any better results in union states as in right-to-work states. Factory workers in right-to-work states like South Carolina are not paid minimum wage. They're paid well over it, comparable to the union states once you adjust for costs of living. And that's why when the unions tried to go into South Carolina to get BMW workers to join, they didn't, because the workers didn't see any benefits. What do the unions do then? They go crying to government to make them. But if unions are so great for workers, why would they have to be forced to join?
In practice, this means that to stop the abolishment of the minimum wage from affecting the living standards of low earners, a strong culture of unions might have to rise up to keep unscrupulous employers in check.
Oh yeah, those horrible employers who are just gonna pay people 10 cents an hour. Come on! When less than 3% of people are making minimum wage during an economic recession, there's still 97% being paid more than the minimum wage, even in non-union states. No, this is more Marxist crap. Workers' wages are always set at the equilibrium. Minimum wage will only have one of two effects. Either it'll be set below the equilibrium, in which case the result will be nothing, or it'll be set above the equilibrium, in which case the result will be people losing their jobs.
Number 8. More starter jobs for the young. Youth unemployment currently stands at around 10% in the USA.
Hey, we've got another good one here. Maybe he can be taught.
Number 7. A sluggish economy. There's one immutable...
Wait. You yourself just said there'd be more people working. How does more people working make the economy sluggish?
Those with more money tend to spend that money. This means dollars pouring into the local economy, whizzing around and making everything from the local 7-Eleven to the diner on Main Street to your gym teacher's illicit marijuana business becoming more profitable.
Oh, for crying out. Okay, maybe you're not as well read as I thought. You missed Bastiat. You missed Hazlitt. This is a broken window fallacy. What do you think happens with that money anyway? It's either getting spent on one thing or it's getting spent on another thing. What eliminating the minimum wage does is increase productivity, which increases wealth for everyone, which means the economy will be growing, not sluggish.
In 2007, Congress authorized a mild increase in the minimum wage. The knock-on effect was increased consumer spending in 2008 and 2009, despite a massive recession walloping the American middle class right in the face.
That's not the case once you control for the deflationary effects of the Depression.
Those increases, in other words, helped shield the economy when it needed it most.
No, it didn't. All it did was take jobs away from people who needed it.
If people feel squeezed, they'll stop spending.
Look, a big problem with the economy right now, both in the US and in Europe, is an abnormally low savings rate. We need more savings and less consumption in order to grow out of this Great Recession. You know, the one that ended in 2009.
Number 6. Delayed automation. At some point in a lifetime, a robot is going to take your job.
Oh, for crying out. Robots do not take people's jobs. Not in a free market. People don't lose their jobs to automation. They lose them to minimum wage or other regulations, and automation helps pick up the slack. In a free market, what automation does is free up labor resources so that they can do other things. Sort of like how when cars came out, people who made buggy whips lost their jobs, but they went on to do other things and the economy was better for it. You need to research the concept of creative destruction. The jobs that are quote-unquote lost to automation are more than made up for with jobs that are created by the increased productivity. This is just bogus neo-Luddism.
Number 5. Difficult negotiations. One of the big positives about eliminating the minimum wage is it allows employers to pay each employee what their labor is worth. However, this puts some workers at an unhappy disadvantage. Those who are young, shy, or inexperienced can easily be taken advantage of by unscrupulous employers looking to pay them far less than their work is worth.
Oh, here we go again, more Marxist crap. They're not taken advantage of. You yourself said earlier they're given opportunities. They're paid less because they don't have the skills, because they don't have the work history. Their productivity is lower and the employer is taking a chance on them. For crying out loud, how about at least a little self-consistency here?
The trouble with a sudden total scrapping of the minimum wage is that everyone would be forced to negotiate their wage with their employer before starting.
Isn't that what happens already?
No problem if you've got a tradable skill or confidence by the bucket load, but if you're one of those people who often gets taken advantage of, well, let's just say you're going to be completely and utterly screwed.
Yeah, you're going to be paid 10 cents an hour. No, you won't!
Obviously, this is only a downside if you have any feelings of empathy towards the terminally meek.
Oh, yeah, right. Because people only disagree with you because they don't have empathy. Look, the people you're talking about right now, the people who would be working for less than minimum wage, the people who would be exploited or whatever kind of meaningless buzzword you want to put on them. The alternative they have right now is not working. They don't have jobs at all. Even that job at a sub-minimum wage is better than what they're making now, which is nothing. So how are we the ones who lack empathy here? You've never worked a minimum wage job in your life, have you?
Number 4. No more undercutting wages. Globalization pissed a lot of people off. For all of its undoubted benefits, it let big business undercut its employees' wages by outsourcing to Latin America or Southeast Asia or wherever.
It would be more accurate to say it forced them to, because the only alternative is closing down.
There's a reason that calling up AT&T will get you through to some dude in the Czech Republic, or calling BT from Britain will get you put through to India. It's cheaper to hire someone in a smaller or less developed economy to do the same work. And that means people in the company's home country lose those call center manufacturing or clothes-making jobs.
And they gain in the lower prices they pay for those services. Customer service is expensive. It's easily the most expensive item that most businesses have to pay for.
In a world without the minimum wage, those jobs don't have to leave the country. True, Americans might well have to accept conditions and pay that they are unused to, but many might be willing in order to just have some job. There's a fairly convincing argument to be made that outsourcing and undercutting are almost entirely down to minimum wage laws. Abolish those laws and you'll staunch the flow of jobs overseas, making it cost-effective for a company to keep operating in its homeland. For those living in a depressed, post-manufacturing small town, it could completely change their lives.
Okay, so that's another good one. He had a little bit wrong in his rhetoric, but the idea is fine. Maybe the rest of it will be good for here on out.
Number 3, increased inequality.
Oh, for crying out.
Inequality is killing us. The best-selling economics book, The Spirit Level, effectively argued that increasing inequality can lead to worse health and lower life expectancy for people all up and down the social scale.
Except the statistics don't bear it out. Freer countries, countries with freer economies, have lower wealth inequality, and they have higher outcomes in lifespan and health and quality of life and happiness. This has been shown over and over and over again. Here's why this argument is a load of crap. Let's say you have two people. One's making $10,000. One's making $100,000. Now they both get a raise. The guy who's making $10,000 gets a 20% raise. He's now making $12,000. The guy making $100,000 only gets a 10% raise. His raise isn't as high. It goes up to $110,000. But before, the gap between them was $90,000 a year. Now, it's actually gone up to $98,000 a year. So despite the fact that the poor person's lot is being increased at a greater rate, people like you are going to look at this and go, there's more inequality! Just shut up! Shut up until you learn what you're talking about!
In 1998, the UK introduced its first minimum wage at £3.60 an hour, now £7.20. According to The Economist, inequality subsequently shrank across the scale.
Because they didn't count the people who lost their jobs. They were only counting people who were still in the workforce. To do an honest accounting, you have to look at everyone who lost their jobs as a result of the minimum wage and count them at zero. What do you think that does to inequality? How do you think zero compares, huh?
In other words, it wasn't just the working class and working poor who got more equal. The middle class found themselves closer to the upper class, and those at the bottom of society also benefited.
But this has also been the case in the U.S., and it's been the case for the last 30 or 40 years. This whole thing you hear about the shrinking middle class, it's not because they're slinking down into the bottom, it's because they're moving up into the top. And minimum wage has nothing to do with it.
As a result, we can infer things that would travel in the opposite direction if the minimum wage disappeared overnight. Given that many already blame America's crazy political polarization on its Hunger Games-style levels of inequality...
Oh, for crying out, we don't have Hunger Games levels of inequality! The poor and the middle class have never been better off! People have superior results. They have more free time. They have less work that they have to do to be able to meet the same level of quality of life. What has increased is our expectations. So when you look at that in proportion to our increased expectations, it does appear to be lower. But think of how people lived in 1970, when most people had a tiny little black and white TV to watch over the air, no internet, not much in the way of other services that we enjoy today. You want to go back to living like that? Go right ahead. You could probably do so by working a fraction of the hours that you make now.
Number 2. Burdens shifted from employer to government. Do you believe it is the responsibility of governments or companies to help people out of poverty? Let's assume it's someone's responsibility, if only to stop exciting Victorian things like rickets and slums from staging a comeback.
Oh, what do you think got rid of those? It wasn't your precious government. They didn't step in for another 100 years. It was the free market, the freest market that the world had ever seen. Nothing in history anywhere on the planet increased the economic conditions of the poor and the working class as much as capitalism did in the 19th century without your precious government. Rickets and slums, yeah, like those didn't exist before. Oh, everything's fine. Now capitalism comes along. Sorry, we're bringing in rickets and slums. Give me a break.
The answer lies in tax credits, which are currently a big part of the American and British welfare systems. Tax credits essentially pay for a big chunk of the working poor's taxes, leaving them a few $1,000s a year better off.
Lowering taxes is good. Did you just tacitly admit that your government is causing a lot of this problem by overtaxing people?
They also allow employers to pay their workers less without affecting the workers' quality of life. Instead, the burden is shouldered by the government. Not only are both the employee and employer better off, evidence shows that tax credits generally get more into work.
How about just not tax them as much to begin with? Did that ever occur to you?
If you remove the minimum wage while creating and sustaining a strong tax credit system, you could reap all the benefits of a world without minimum wage without having to absorb the negatives.
And you could do even more by eliminating the income tax, which you could easily do if you dismantled the regulatory state and got the government down to its constitutional functions.
Number 1. Absolutely nothing happens. After all those possible positives and negatives of a minimum wageless world, we're now about to tell you that it could all be horse manure. According to one analysis, completely scrapping the minimum wage could potentially have no discernible effect whatsoever. This is related to the idea of wages being sticky. Basically, once wages are raised to a certain level, they rarely drop back down below that point again. It might be due to workplace pressure, no one wanting to work for a company that mercilessly slashes wages, social pressure, the bad PR cutting wages might earn, or just employers and employees getting conditioned to that wage being the right one for that job.
What this is ignoring, though, is that while this does seem to be true with established companies and industries, it's not necessarily the case with startups. So what you'll see here is a flourishing of small businesses as they crop up to hire those that minimum wage have priced out of unemployment. That means a more robust economy because economies are better off when they're primarily made of small businesses and not these huge corporations that the regulatory state maintains.
In a nutshell then, the minimum wage might vanish tomorrow and employers at Walmart might still keep earning $7.25 per hour.
They already make more than that! Come on, this is misinformation! Walmart's starting wage is $10 an hour for most workers. The average is over $13. No one at Walmart makes less than $9 an hour. Stop lying!
So I really hope you found that video informative and interesting.
The only thing I found interesting was how you were almost right, but then your idiotic socialist, Marxist, neo-Luddite mentality sent it all going south. Well, that's it for another video. Please hit subscribe and like. And if you like this channel, please donate or consider becoming a patron. And this channel has lots of other videos on the minimum wage. Check them out.